Hey everybody, welcome to today's Jeff Heilman Project, your go-to podcast for the systematizing of success in both family and business. Today we have a very special business interview. We have with us Ben Towne of the Max Value Podcast and other things. I would love for you to introduce yourself, Ben, and tell us more about what you do and how you're doing it.
Founder of Towne Advisory, which is a valuation and accounting firm. Spinning off of that, doing the Max Value podcast to really just kind of put out the message to the world of how you can increase the value of a business before you exit it. A lot of people need that help. And gosh, over time, done a lot of things. I'm a CPA, done taxes, done audits, moved on from that and looked at how businesses actually operate, set up a back office in India. That is our own entity, and we have 11 people working with us out there. That makes for I'll say a built-in trip every year.
How did you end up? I'm just curious. How'd you end up in San Jose of all places? It's not necessarily the financial hub of the world, but
well, it's more than people think, right?
Okay.
It is right in the middle of Silicon Valley, right? And I was born here, so I lucked into it, if you will.
Whenever Jeff talks about finance, he's always talking very highly about, of course, the East Coast and New York City. But are you finding more old money or new money, or is there a balance in California for that in finance?
It's an old area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, San Jose used to be the capital of California, under the Spanish back in the day. So it's not that there hasn't been a strong root system. There's just been a lot of imported and new money essentially coming in as well. We come across a lot of traditional businesses as well as tech startups that have long history here.
Well, plus you got Sand Hill Road, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you look at dry powder, I don't know if it's $1 trillion, but it's got to be, high sevens, low $800 billion of capital sitting in VC firms and private equity firms based in California right now. Give us a candy bar wrapper around the podcast as far as what the mission for the podcast is. Is it to just bring awareness and viability to conversations around exits, or help me understand what your purpose on that is?
Sure. It's a lot about education and awareness. And so really it's aimed at business owners and their trusted business advisors who want to maximize the value of the business and of the advice they're providing. And so to the extent that we can provide any insights, it's an interview format. So where I'm constantly bringing on people who know more than I do about a particular topic,
That's right.
As you do, so that we can get the best information out there.
I was having a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago. I would love to hear your opinion of why do startups and private equity companies use EBITDA and Warren Buffett absolutely does not. And I think I know why, but I want to hear from you. What is it about EBITDA that's popular, I guess you could say, in the valuation of short-term assets like venture capital backed and private equity backed companies?
Yeah, well, and they're short term only because of the time frame of the
short term because
right?
of the time frame. Yeah, exactly.
Because,
versus the buy and hold institutional investor, which is really your target for the Oracles and the SAPs of this world.
Yeah, exactly. So EBITDA is easy to calculate. You can pull it right off of either your P&L. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. You can go through the acronym and make it happen. That's useful. That's helpful. But it's not the full picture, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really make it into either the P&L or the balance sheet. Sometimes it makes it into the cash flow statement when you don't see. Some investors are going to be constantly looking at cash flow. Sometimes it's very similar, sometimes the same. Oftentimes it's not quite the same.
Sometimes it's off by several percentage points, if not more.
Sometimes it's off by quite a bit, which can make or break a deal.
When you're looking at valuation, what is kind of the laundry list, the Wheel of Fortune, RSTLNE, if you will, of solving the puzzle of valuation? It's not just EBITDA. It's not just cash on hand versus debt. Talk to us a little bit about if you're valuing mom and pop startup that grows to 300 employees and 10 million a month of sales, if not better.
Valuing anything boils down to a simple arithmetic equation, which is looking at the cash flows or profitability divided by the risk offset by any growth that you're experiencing.
You're just talking about just the pure valuation of the business by itself on the open market, not looking at what the force multipliers of investment would be of somebody who strategically needs that technology piece in order to grow the.
Correct.
We're just talking about the business by itself.
As a standalone entity, that's right. Looking into each of those buckets, you have a perspective as a standalone business, and then you have a perspective as the acquiring business. When you have, say, that risk factor, which is so crucial, and you have a 300-person business being then acquired by a 3,000-person business, that risk factor actually changes because now you have a, likely, hopefully, a lower risk factor, which means that changes the equation. Hopefully everybody's good enough with fractions to do that.
That's right.
Increases value pretty
hence
easy.
why you have earnouts for 2 or 3 years of performance post exit.
You certainly don't want that top number, that cash flow to come down. You want that to keep improving.
That's right. You bring up an interesting point. You have the business, this asset's worth whatever, $100 million by itself. It might be worth 120 or 150 million or more strategically to somebody who's trying to grow in the area. And I don't know if you play in the area of ERP at all with Oracle, and ServiceNow is trying to enter that space, and Workday and SAP. But if you take enterprise resource planning, which is effectively your big Fortune 500 or Global 5,000 crown jewels accounting software, right, bigger than what you get with a QuickBooks or one of those middle tiers that you would get from Intuit. But how do you value a modular business like supply chain or HR or enterprise performance management rolling into a larger ERP player like that? How do you get to that valuation of not just what the business is worth today, but what's it worth in roll up post 3 to 5 years down the trail?
That's a little bit outside of what we do on the daily, but I will say does go back to whose perspective and whose side are you on, if you will, right? When you're looking at the acquirer, obviously you don't want to pay for any of the value that you bring to the table. Right. And so those strategic synergistic...
Your brand, your go-to-market strategy, your install base of customers that you can easily walk...
That's it.
The newly acquired company into as a vendor. Yep.
That's it exactly, right? That standalone company can do a lot better leveraging your assets as the acquirer. And so everybody should know, what those things each party is bringing to the table.
Yeah. That
becomes part of the negotiation at that point. But again, the acquirer isn't going to want to pay for its own assets.
That's exactly right. And the force multiplier value of the acquired business by that brand, I mean, probably the most public example of that would be like a PeopleSoft being acquired by Oracle, or BEA, WebLogic getting acquired. These are multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they're worth tens of billions post-exit, plus a couple of years of run rate because of the fact that the acquiring entity can just walk them into thousands and thousands of customers as the new global standard for whatever that niche is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and usually I'm not playing in the Trace Gama's arena, but
I'm not playing in that space either. But I've worked
for examples.
I've worked for IBM and Oracle and Cisco and Intel, and these are all companies. Some of them I've worked post-acquisition. Some, I'm trying to think. Oracle, I was not part of a startup. I just went to work straight in the field sales team. But in the case of when Cisco acquired Perfigo in 2004, that business they bought for $75 million. We were doing $7 million in sales. So they bought us for 10x revenue.
Yeah, always have to say
10x revenue.
Yeah,
that's
what
right.
The base is.
And they also bought us at $3 million ahead because we were only 25 people.
That's pretty good.
So there was another valuation that we learned, which was that the cost of acquisition of talent based on whether or not they'd been market proven. High school dropout, $50,000. College degree, $75,000. Masters, they'd spend $125,000 to acquire. Startup person, $3 million, because people who'd worked together in groups at startups that had proven market disruption, even 25 to 50 people, were extremely valuable. And a lot of the reason why Cisco did as well as they did was because they built a systemic process for acquiring companies to the point where I think when they bought WebEx for $3 or $4 billion, they did the entire acquisition in 11 days. That's lightning speed for a company at scale to do that, right?
I'm not even sure I could do the valuation in 11 days. Yeah, that's crazy.
Seriously, like start to finish, top to bottom, left to right, board approved.
I've seen how long it takes just a deal to close.
Yeah,
just a regular
trying to get a deal. And they literally bought WebEx start to finish from the press release to signatures on final docs and wire transfers. was 11 days. Because they were willing to do that and they did it 150 times, a lot of the people that work for Cisco, even to this day, came in through acquisition. They were startup people who had effectively been part of the outsourcing of R&D in Silicon Valley to the startup community that stayed with Cisco because the growth was just insane.
When the risk profile becomes palatable
Yes.
and reasonable for the bigger company, for Cisco in this case, then that's when you bring them in house. You don't seed all these things internally, because you're not in the business of being an incubator necessarily. Now,
Exactly. But you can reap the benefits of being an incubator. Amazon's very similar to that in that once they started going down the AWS route and could pull all of this compute that they weren't using for their e-commerce business back into the open market at the developer community, basically anything you could build, they could build faster, or anything you could build, they could buy and incorporate into their infrastructure as a service model. That worked extremely well for those guys. I mean, Amazon, even to this day, is really a ferocious competitor to a lot of the stuff that we saw at Intel, to a lot of the stuff that we saw at Cisco, and then certainly to Oracle. Once they got off the Oracle database and started building their own back office systems, Oracle was like, this could be a problem.
the next new thing is the GPUs with the faster compute for powering the AI
And getting
systems.
to energy. How do we get enough electric grid to support the processing power that's going to be required in order to run these GPUs?
My daughter and we've started a business. We have a product. We have a website. I built the website. We have product. We're doing pop-ups with our product, just like local, but we're just getting started. And we always, I'm going to go, I'm in the process of doing my business seller's permit through the county and all that stuff. But you always have that question that pops up, sole proprietor or LLC. And, for what we know, for what we've always done is sole proprietor. But when do you go from clicking the sole proprietor box, building your whole business based on your social security number, to actually going through and filing for an LLC and doing the whole big bit? That always just makes it sound so much more official to me. If you're starting, how do you start?
Well, first off, you can actually get a tax ID number for your sole proprietorship, even if it's just you. Thanks to my business partner, Alan.
All right. Thanks,
Show
Alan.
me that. Thanks, Alan. Really, it has to do with what's at risk. Literally just starting out in life, and you don't have other assets that people can try to go get.
Sure.
Then absolutely.
LLP, you may not need it.
Then you might not need a business entity, because here in California you pay $800 and you have to do a little bit more filings and etc. So it's not the best. But if you get to the point where this is a real business, this isn't just a hobby, you have other assets.
Somebody sued me,
right?
I could lose some stuff.
If somebody sued me, I could lose some stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. What is the actual risk of the business that you're running? What do you have at risk?
How important are trademarks and copyrights? And now you've seen with everyone creating all of this content, you have Max Value Podcast, we have the Jeff Heilman Project, my daughter and I have our kitschy brand and our logo and our business. Right. When does it become absolutely, you got to get trademarks on this stuff, you got to protect yourself, you got to get copyrights?
You need to do it right before it gets valuable.
Right.
And when does that happen? With Jeff Heilman Project, you've already staked out your claim for the name.
Yeah.
And, as it gets more and more and more valuable and more, watched and consumed, that defensive asset will be important.
Right.
Now, day one, is it worth anything? No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not, because you haven't done anything.
Yeah. We've been doing this 3 years. It's barely worth anything. Right.
That's how I feel about my business.
Yeah. Right? But we're working on it, and eventually it'll be worth something. And at that point,
right, when
there's somebody that could get sued and lose something, or when
when you have something to take.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if, that's where, if you have copyrighted material that somebody would actually want, that's absolutely important. When you have a business product that, there's money there and somebody would want to copy you and infringe, that's when you need to have it. And of course, you need to have that before you're starting to really make that money. So you get that proof of concept, make sure that it's going to make money. I know it's easier than I'm saying it like it's so easy.
No.
But then you go get your defensive assets in place to make sure that you can protect what you
Well,
are
it
building.
seems it can be such a huge stumbling block. I know from people that are tentative, if they've never done it before, to just consider all of the things, all of the risks, and then just say, well, it's too risky, I don't want to do it. So it's always been our encouragement here on the Jeff Heilman project to like, you're, as long as you remain innovative, even if somebody comes along and ankle bites, like you can still, if you can innovate faster than they can ankle bite, then you're going to be able to continue to create and continue to be powerful. But having the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to say, no, we need to protect or we need to ensure what we're doing so that we can have a longer lasting run, that's just important. So I would hope to encourage anybody who's watching that, start out, do it, get started, do the sole proprietorship, let it grow, find someone, follow a Max Value podcast, reach out, talk to somebody who's got more experience so that you can know when to hopefully go to that next step.
So Ben, tell me a little bit about when you're engaging with a client. Is it only when it's ready to exit? Are you trying to say, hey, this is, you're going in on the succession planning run? I mean, one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is, you got 35 million small businesses in America right now, most of which have no succession plan. Absolutely. And I think that if we go back in time, Harry S. Dent wrote a book around 1999, 2000 called The Roaring 2000s. And in that, he talked about effectively a snake with a golf ball or a basketball of, as the basketball moves through the snake, so moves the baby boomers through the economy. Going back, first example is 1955 with the Davy Crockett Show, and the price of raccoon skin goes from 25 cents a pound to $8 a pound in 1 year because of the Davy Crockett Show. And then you start to see what do they need? What do the baby boomers need when they're 16? They need Ford Mustangs. Then what do they need when they're 25? They need, Chrysler minivans. Then what do they need when they're 35? They need, timeshares in Hawaii.
Right.
And when they're 50, they need investment planning. And when they're 70, they need vacation homes. And when they're 85 and 90, they need hospital care and healthcare and stuff. And so each area of the economy booms as a direct expansion of this 4x multiple of baby booms. Well, now we're starting to see, hey, after we've sold them houses and second homes and vacation properties in Thailand and sports cars and country club memberships and retirement accounts. Well, now there's succession planning because they don't have any kids that want to take the business over. They need to sell the business or else their next of kin isn't going to get any of the assets from it since they're not going to run it. Like that seems to be a problem, but I'm making a stab in the dark statement here, but I would imagine this probably has something to do with the sweet spot for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously in, I don't know about, Fess Parker's fashion choices exactly. But I've deep knowledge of old TV.
55, right? David Crockett Show is 55.
I think that's true.
I think that's right.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. But the in all those other cases, all those things still exist. It's just the relative demand on it, right?
Yeah.
The relative demand on it.
Like nursing. If you have a job in nursing right now, you're good. You'll work as many double shifts as you want for the rest of your life.
Oh, especially in-home care.
100%.
Oh my God.
100%.
Absolutely. And speaking of good businesses at the moment, yeah, exactly. That is shaping the need to consolidate in a lot of industries because there's just not enough people who want to do those kinds of businesses and it can have that level of knowledge and that level of business acumen in the those arenas. And it is driving a ton of a lot of panic, actually, a lot of panic planning, if you will.
Yep.
Because somebody who is in good shape and who's 65 all of a sudden realizes that, oh, whoops, I had my first medical issue.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I'm not going to live forever. Because at the end of the day, you exit your business one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And whether that's feet first or you walk out the door with a check, that it's going to happen. So let's see if we can make sure that it's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And the way you want to do it optimally.
And I'm not here to say what you do for a business. I mean, I want to know, is that like, if you look at the sweet spot, because there's, I don't know, you might have 100, 200 people that watch this episode. If there's a sweet spot for your business, what is it? When somebody has this question in their mind, this is when they should call you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that case where you have a traditional business, maybe it's even a second generation business, you're, 10 to 50 million in sales, that sort of thing. We get a lot of, contractors and subs and those sorts of companies, really successful people but have just never gone through the exit process before. Obviously, this is their one at bat.
Yep.
They're really smart people who just don't have this kind of knowledge. Those are the kinds of people we want to be talking to.
Gotcha. So could be people in construction, could be people in the trades, maybe a plumber that's got 10 or 15 trucks, and Junior may have some acumen. He may be in sales. He may be running a couple of trucks as a crew, but not ready to take over the business yet, or just needs some help.
Could be.
And somebody to stand in almost as a trustee of the business itself and help with the actual operations and the transference of duties, especially in the case where you have something sudden, right, happen from a health perspective.
Exactly. And when I say exit planning, I absolutely include succession planning.
Yeah.
Because it's focusing on that individual. So
that's right.
That individual matriarch or patriarch of the business, or, the older generation, if they're multiple, whatever it is, they've figured their thing out. But the fact is they're going to need to transition it to somebody else at some time, or transition it to the void because they die and the company dies with them. And that's the worst outcome generally for everybody.
The thing I think about is the spouse, right?
Sure.
If you're married, which, I mean, just statistically, most business owners are married.
Sure.
Right. I mean, most people are married when you get to be an adult, and most business owners for sure. And most business owners who are married, and I'm thinking about the guys, but obviously there's plenty of situations where the woman owns the business too. But where the guy and his wife build the business together, and the wife maybe can't do it all by herself, or needs help, or just wants out. They're not all, I don't know if you watched Landman. I just finished season 2 of Landman, but one of the guys, I won't tell you what happens in the end, but the wife ends up with the business, and it's billions of dollars, and she's got to figure out how to run it. And she makes some critical errors in the decision-making of how to run the business. But it's with a huge baseball bat that involves lots of people and lots of dough. And so it's not that women can't run the business, but a lot of times they just don't want to. They don't want to run it without their husbands if their husbands are not well from a health perspective, and they want out and they want to sell it. I mean, that's something you can help them with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that ends up being an emergency situation. So, whichever spouse was the in-spouse in the business, whether or not there's the skill equally distributed, there's still just the experience, that every day you have to be, who to go to for the problems. Like there is a lot of institutional knowledge most of the time by that lead person that just poofs away, which is that's the first problem and should have been addressed 3 years prior.
What do you think about David Green and from the founder of Hobby Lobby and his setup that they have written about in their books about in their inheritance to their children? They give their children positions in the company. They make sure that the children have risen up and they're they're CEO level, executive level. And instead of leaving behind an inheritance of just plain money, they actually work to leave behind positions that the children will succeed into and take on as continuing running of the company.
That would work ideally. I think in practice, a lot of times there's very big differential in interest in running a business or being a role in the business. Some families are just wonderful in the fact that they are aligned and, yes, this cousin can be the VP of sales and that cousin can be the CEO and this, the brother can be whatever. Right. And it works well. It just fragments very, very easily in practice. And I won't speak to that particular instance, of course.
As a family ourselves and with many children, altruistically, I would always love the thought of having my children desire to raise in leadership and want to take roles in the family. And I just thought it was interesting to consider, if you could actually have enough gall to say, kids, we're not leaving you any money, we're leaving you a company and you get to run it. That would be, I don't know. Yeah. That just sounds very bold to me. And I don't know how that would even work, if it would work. Because not all kids are going to be interested necessarily in what you're doing.
And that's the thing. I think that is part of the exit planning process, in succession planning in that case. Who actually wants to do the work?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work, as we all know. Anybody who's ever run a business for any amount of time, it's a bit of work, even if you're doing exactly, what you think is the right thing. And
that's the whole thing, is that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
At every level of the business.
Correct.
Right? Sole proprietor, first 5 employees, 30 employees, first million in sales, first $10 million month. Every time you're sitting there going,
This is new.
I don't know. I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever sued me before. I've never dealt with wrongful termination suits.
Right.
I've never dealt with legal. I've never dealt with, and it's like that every day if you're growing, if you're actually doing it right.
Right.
And then how fast is too fast, right? In the startup world, one of the reasons why we did our storage startup was because growth at 10 to 15% isn't attractive enough. And growth at 50 to 60%, the bolts come off the airplane before you get to the speed of sound. So we found that growth area of storage in the 20 to 25% was just right, except that, everybody and their mother was doing it because it was a commodity, and they were we had 6 major competitors within the first year, all of whom had more money than we did, all trying to disrupt the same market of EMC and NetApp at the same time. Anytime you're doing your business, whether it's software, whether it's consulting, you're going to be pushing yourself up against the envelope just to survive.
Well, exactly, and especially when there's alpha to be gotten there, right? I mean,
100%.
It's the honey that attracts the bees, or the whatever.
Yeah. Market disruption, scale, the ability to do something that's interesting, the innovative side of it from a software perspective, the selling and the positioning side of it, and then if you're doing it right, also the customer feedback. Now, from a CPA perspective, I would imagine your customer feedback's pretty consistent. But from an innovative, year in and year out, right? You're dealing with the same.
I'm not actually.
Same thing. Tell me.
In my business, since we focus on more project or transactional work, so actually only 40% of our business is year over year. Like we'll do a stock option plan evaluation every year for these guys.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's one-off relationship. So really, in a certain sense, my clients are the attorneys and CPAs who refer me in, because we don't do taxes on the every year or accounting every month.
Right.
So it's a little different.
So in that case, you're going in by referral from somebody who's already
Correct.
Already either providing services as a consultant or general counsel.
Well, and that's why and that's why we have to make sure we're adding value every single time. We have to make sure that we're getting that rapport, and it's like when you call the doctor, right? You have your general practitioner, and
you got your foot surgeon.
That's your tax CPA, and we're your foot surgeon. We're your
exactly.
specialist who's seen this particular problem 100 times, so that when you get to your one, mixing metaphors here, when you get to your one at bat, exiting your company, you're not doing a sample size, one of one kind of experiment. You have some people who are there who have seen it and done it.
Yeah, and that's the older I get, the more I realize that if you're really doing business right, it's boring as F. It's slow, It's consistent, it's methodical. You're doing the same thing. You're getting rid of variance. You're getting rid of risk in as much as you possibly can. You are dry cleaning shirts and dry cleaning pants and putting a plastic bag on them and charging a healthy margin that costs more than your chemicals and your light production costs and your electricity and everything else. And
doing things the right way consistently is so tough because in some ways, because it is boring.
It's boring.
It should be.
If you're doing it right, it's boring. That green is boring.
So I'm curious, is your wife as interested in finance as you are, or is she? No.
No, she's not.
She the color to your world.
Oh, absolutely. She's the color to any party. I mean, I show up and say I'm a CPA, and people start talking to my wife.
There you go.
Because she's used to be a news producer for NBC locally here, she runs a local newspaper and and covers the Sharks for the hockey team locally.
Okay.
For her blog, Fear the Fin.
Fear the
Shout out
Fin.
to that.
Fear
Awesome.
the Fin.
We got to shout out wives
Shout out
too.
the wife too.
Shout out
What's
the
your
wives.
wife's name? Not present.
Erika.
Erika.
Okay.
Way to go, Erika. Thanks for being the color.
That's right.
And the color's teal.
Oh, there you go.
The color is teal. That's right. 95? When do we have the Sharks?
91.
91. Okay.
So this is like the 35th year, I think.
Okay.
Oh,
I
wow.
remember when they expanded and everybody was wearing the Sharks hats.
Way to go, USA.
Yes.
Yes, that was
Women and
amazing.
men's hockey.
and women
That's right.
over Canada. Sorry, guys.
So,
Still love you, Canada.
as we conclude, tell us first of all where we can find you, and then tell us what you're up to, what you're working on, What new projects, what new products, what are you seeing in the marketplace that would warrant a call to Ben Towne in consulting?
Awesome. Basically working a lot on Max Value Podcast. That's on YouTube and basically all your podcatchers everywhere.
Yeah.
We have basically our whole next season lined up and in production right now, just starting to drop the episodes. I think we're on 2 right now.
Yeah.
We find that there are a lot of different size companies with a lot of different kinds of needs. And the way I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur, is an entrepreneur still. And it always made me very partial to small business. And sometimes that's not so economically feasible to be dealing with smaller businesses, especially for, when we try to provide a premium product. So when we're doing, really in-depth valuation analyses, as a CPA, I have standards that I got to meet, and we have to do a lot of certain things to make sure that we've done the right processes, the right documentation, et cetera. So sometimes it gets cost prohibitive. One of the things that we've come up with is called a business diagnostic, which gives a lot of the research and a lot of the insight that a valuation does, but we're not concluding so that we don't have to do all of the rest of the components there. That really helps when people are vetting a transaction. Like, hey, I'm looking at buying something. Just give me the pricing diligence, if you will. Like, does it make sense?
Yep.
Do we want this business going?
Or even give it to me in a range. I don't need you to give me an exact dollar amount. I just want to know if I spend between, 20 million and 25 million, am I in the ballpark for this? Because that's how much I can get financing for.
That's the right discussion. Exactly.
That's what we've got slotted for acquisition, right?
Right. Exactly. And vice versa. When you're on the sell side,
yeah.
Hey, does this offer make any kind of sense?
Yep.
Should you be getting more? Should you be getting less? That kind of thing. And so that's something that we've developed because we really want to help smaller business owners. That makes it sound like I'm dealing with very short people, like I am, but that can.
We're not singing Randy Newman here, folks.
And then on the flip side, you have when you get a very mature, developed business, we have our exit builder program to go through for exit planning, and again, that's whether that's internal succession, whether that's going through an ESOP, whether that's selling out to PE. Et cetera, whatever that is, that brings us through that.
You actually bring up a good question. What is the appetite for private equity for small to medium mom and pop businesses these days?
Oh, that's a good question. So it depends on what you mean by small mom and pop, really.
Well, right. And by small mom and pop, I would say starting at 25 to 50 million and up.
Yeah, absolutely. Hungry.
Yeah.
The appetite is hungry.
I would imagine.
Absolutely. Because everybody right now is trying to, is searching for that cash flow and searching for that ability to have that multiplier.
Yeah. And then if you look at what Trump and the Fed are doing and try to drive interest rates down, like dry powder is everywhere. Yeah. At least it seems to be.
Chasing returns.
Yeah.
You're chasing returns all the time.
Yeah.
And private business is a great place to get those returns. Especially with boring businesses, as you were talking about. It
absolutely is with boring businesses and companies that are designed to get rid of the fluff and figure out how to grow and or integrate. I have one friend of mine sold a business to private equity about 2 years ago in the 20 to 25 million range, and they rolled it into like 8 others that were similar and created one big monolith, almost like what they were doing with mortgages back in the mid 2000s, just packaging it up, rolling it up, and squeezing the fat out, the fluff, right? The
fat is delicious, but it doesn't always get the job done.
It sometimes you need nutrition that has fiber attached to it as well in your diet.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends, because that's the way the community grows, is in communion with one another. We're here to help you. Always reach out, and we would love to get back to you at the Jeff Heilman Project and thejeffheilmanproject.com.
Ben, thanks for being with us today. We enjoyed it.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
Thanks.